Hey, what's up guys? Doing some more work to this 1999 Buick Lesabre. Going to be working on the cooling system today. So I'm going to be draining the coolant, replacing the radiator, upper and lower radiator hoses, replacing the thermostat. And then the water pump on this is only a couple years old, but the gasket seems to be leaking. So I'm just going to replace the water pump gasket. And then there's also a couple transmission cooling lines that go to the radiator to the transmission that are leaking. So I'll be replacing those as well. I'll show you how to do all that. So let's get started. Go ahead and pop your hood. Once you get your hood open, we'll start out by removing this engine cover here because your upper radiator hose goes to your thermostat and it's underneath this. So go ahead and pull off your engine oil fill cap here. And then if you can, we need to twist this counterclockwise to remove this little fill neck. So you can pull that off of there like that. And then you can just kind of lift up on this and get this out of here. And then just go ahead and replace this fill neck in your cap because you don't want to drop anything down into the crankcase there. And then as you can see, that gives us access to our thermostat housing, which is going to be right here. So we should probably start out by draining the radiator so we can let that drain while we start taking apart other things. And your drain petcock is going to be way down there in the corner. And I'm thinking we're going to have to remove this air filter housing here because we're going to have to remove that anyways to get the cooling fans out of the way to replace the radiator. And I'm not sure if you can tell, but you can see all the transmission fluid kind of down there at the bottom. So those cooling lines have been leaking for a while here. So let's go ahead and start by removing this air filter housing and see if we can get to the drain petcock. If not, we'll jack it up and get to it from underneath. So go ahead and grab a 1/4 inch. Let's go ahead and loosen up this hose clamp right here. Just get that nice and loose. And then just see if you can slide that off of the housing here. Just pop that off like that. Come up to the front of the housing. You got a couple 1/4 inch bolts. So go ahead and unscrew those as well. And then go ahead and see if you can get this housing out of here. So what you're going to do is lift up here, and this will just kind of pop out of here. Just like that. You can see there's these rubber grommet right here that'll pop out right there. So now with that air filter housing out of the way here, you can see that gives us access to our drain petcock down there on the radiator. And there's a nipple on the bottom of that where you can connect a hose so you can drain it into a pan a lot easier. So I think I'm going to use that method. And before I jack this up, let's see if we can maybe just get under there without having to jack it up. We'll get the skid plate off and then we'll take a look at that nipple, connect a hose, and we'll start draining it. So go ahead and crawl underneath the front of the vehicle here, and we need to remove this skid plate here. So you're going to have, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 millimeter bolts. Let's go ahead and remove those first. Next, grab a 6 millimeter. You're going to have 4 bolts holding the front of the skid plate on. So remove those. And then you can go ahead and get this skid plate out of here. And if you notice, these are those transmission lines that are leaking really bad here. So that's why I'll be replacing those today as well. And then if you take a look here, so right up through this hole here is where that drain petcock is going to be, and that nipple is going to be right up there. So what you want to do, just find you a hose that'll fit onto that nipple. So I got this hose fit on there. And then grab you a drain pan to collect all the old coolant here. Get that set in there. Go back up top here. Go ahead and pull off your cap on your coolant overflow reservoir here. We will also pull off the radiator cap here, so go ahead and pull that off. And then also, I forgot to mention, you want to do this when the system's cool, obviously. Let's go ahead and pull that cap off. That way air can get through the system to help it drain better. So now we'll go ahead and see if we can get the drain petcock loosened. I'm going to see if I can go down below there with a pair of pliers because it's really hard to get your hand down there and then just have the strength to turn that with your fingers. So let's try a pair of pliers here. I'll go down below. is you just want to crack it loose with your pair of pliers. Once you get it cracked loose, you should be able to use your fingers the rest of the way. Try to reach down here. Go ahead and untwist that. And that should be draining here. Let's take a look. So it seems like that doesn't want to drain too well. I don't know if that nipple's clogged or something, but what I'm having to do is just unscrew that a little more here, and I just pull it outward, and then it starts draining, but then it kind of goes all over the place. So just be careful. Make sure your pan's under there good enough. So let me just go ahead and pull out on this a little more. Maybe. There we go. Like I said, just make sure your pan's lined up under there. And we'll go ahead and let that drain. So while that's draining, let's go ahead and get this upper radiator hose off and then our thermostat housing. And not sure if you guys can tell, but there's quite a bit of corrosion around here. So this thermostat housing's been leaking for a little bit. So that's why I'll be replacing it. So we'll start off by removing these hose clamps here. So you can just take a pair of vice grips, a pair of pliers, whatever you want to use. Go ahead and pull this off of here. Same thing on this one here. And there's still some fluid in here, or some coolant, so just be careful. And let me actually see if I can just dump this down here. That way it doesn't make a huge mess. Pull this off. So now we'll grab a 10mm. Let's go ahead and remove our thermostat housing bolts here. And I probably should have cracked open this bleeder valve. That's probably why it wasn't flowing out of the hose on the radiator there. So if you guys want, you can loosen up this bleeder valve here. And maybe that'll help it drain a little better. And just be careful on this top bolt here, because you got this vacuum hose. So let's see if we can just pull this off. Well, I just pulled that off. Looks like I may have to get a new vacuum line for that since it did break. You can see this stuff just gets very old and brittle. You can see that snapped right there as well. So be careful doing that since this stuff is old. So let's go ahead and pull this off of here. So go ahead and pull off your thermostat housing here. Get your pair of pliers, pull off your thermostat. Grab a 10mm. Let's go ahead and remove these 4 bolts holding our cooling fans in there. And then remove these 4 10mm bolts here on top. Need to get this out of the way. Next, we'll go ahead and disconnect one of our transmission lines on the radiator here. I'm going to use a line wrench for this. If you guys don't have a line wrench, you can still just use a normal wrench. That's going to be a 5/8. Let's see if we can break this free. So go ahead and break that free. Twist that out of there. So there's that one. And then go ahead and try and reach down there for the other line going in. See if we can break that one free. And that one's going to be a little bit harder because the cooling fans are kind of in the way. Let me just try a normal wrench. Let's see if we can break that free. we go. That one should be broken free now. Unless I slipped off of it. There we go. And these are the two lines I'll be replacing. And then just be prepared. You can see there's a little transmission fluid already dripping out of there. Okay, so you can pop that line out of there. Next, let's go ahead and disconnect this coolant overflow hose from the radiator. So if you get a screwdriver, flathead, get up under this clip here. You just kind of turn your screwdriver to the side. That should pop this clip open. And then you can pull this off of here. So you can see this is what that clip looks like. So if you can get under there and just kind of pry this open a little bit, that will loosen that up. Get that hose out of the way. So now let's go ahead and take off the lower radiator hose there. You can see it has that old style clip on here, or hose clamp. So I'm just going to use my flathead screwdriver here. I'll probably replace that with a different clamp when I put the new hose on here. So just go ahead and loosen that up. If yours has that style of clamp, kind of hard to get your hand down in here too. Okay, so now with that loosened, make sure you got your drip pan under here. And let's see if we can pull off this lower radiator hose here. Got it kind of off there. I was just going to let that drain a little. It looks like my light kind of fell. So you see that's pretty much off of there. Okay, so now we got our lines disconnected, our hoses out of the radiator. So we should be able to lift this radiator out of here. So go ahead and should be able to just lift this out of here. Your old radiator. And I still got my drain hose connected here. So now we'll go ahead and get to working on the water pump. So we need to pull off the serpentine belt here. If you want to, you can take a picture of this. There should be, I don't know if this car has one, a routing diagram under the hood here. But if not, there's plenty of diagrams online kind of showing how the belt is routed. But go ahead and grab a 15 millimeter. Go ahead and get on your belt tensioner pulley there. What you're going to do is pull up on this. That'll relieve the tension, and then you can slide your belt off there. Go ahead and let go. Pull off your 15 millimeter socket wrench here. And then you can take this belt off. The water pump pulley there. And if you wanted to, you can kind of just route this away from the water pump. Get that down there. Get it off your AC compressor here. And just kind of get that out of the way. So guys, I totally forgot. I should have loosened up these 4 8mm bolts here on the water pump pulley with the belt still on. Because when that belt's still on there, it kind of holds tension on this, keeps it from spinning. So if you're going to do this, go ahead and crack all 4 of these loose with the belt still on. But if not, no big deal. You can still get them off, maybe with a screwdriver holding this pulley. I'm going to see if my ratchet will maybe break them free. So you can see my ratchet actually breaks them free, because they're not on there too tight. Okay, so go ahead and get those out the rest of the way, and then we can pull off this water pump pulley. So then go ahead and pull off your water pump pulley. And then if you notice, guys, so this is my brother's car. He replaced this water pump maybe a couple years ago. But you can see there's some orange here. It's kind of wet around here. And then right there. So that's why I'm going to be replacing this. Like I said, I'm just doing the gasket because this is only a couple years old. This is a genuine AC Delco water pump. So I figure we'll just replace the gasket and should be good. So in order to get the water pump out of here, though, if you notice, the power steering pump pulley is in the way of this bolt right here. So we're going to need to loosen up this power steering pulley or the pump, and then hopefully tilt it out of the way so we can get access to all the bolts here and pull off the water pump. So in order to get the power steering pump out of here, you need to go through the actual pulley. So that there's going to be a 13 millimeter bolt right there. So what you'll do, go through one of these holes on the pulley, get onto that bolt there, go ahead and break that free, get that one broken free, and then there's going to be another bolt directly below that one, so at the opposite end. So go ahead and rotate your pulley, and that one's going to be right in here somewhere. You can just kind of got to go off a feel for it. There we go. So I'm on it there. So go ahead and break that one free as well. If you get it broken free, you can most likely take off your socket wrench here. Just stick the socket through. And let's see if we can just rotate it, untwist it out with the socket here, this bolt. So get that all the way loosened here. And then same with this one. You can see the pump wanting to come off here. So you can just kind of hold it as you loosen this one. So there we go. So you can kind of just tilt it down, just something kind of like that. So that gives us plenty of room to get to this bolt and pull it all the way out now. Next, grab a 3/8. We're going to remove these top 3 bolts here, and then there's one at the very bottom as well. So go ahead and remove those 4 really quick. So that bottom one's a little harder to get to, but if you got a 1/4 inch ratchet with a 3/8, you can get on it. You can see it right there. Let's see if I can break that one free. And again, these aren't on there very tight, so it's just this motor mount kind of gets in the way here. Like I said, guys, that one is hard to get out of there. Just no room to put your fingers or a ratchet. So you got to kind of twist it out by hand. But there we go. So there's that one. And then you can go ahead and remove the rest of the bolts here. Those are going to be a 1/2 inch. So you got 2 there, and then those 2 there. So go ahead and remove those. So there's that bolt there, and just make sure you got a drip pin under there. So once that's done draining, making a mess all over the place, let's go ahead and pop the water pump off. You can try pulling it off of here. If not, just go ahead and hit it with a mallet. And that guy is on there pretty tight. There we go. Just kind of break that seal. Get your water pump out of here. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and clean up all along the gasket mating surface there on the block. And then also, since I am reusing this water pump here, I'll go ahead and clean this all up, get this old gasket material off of here. And that'll give me a chance to let my camera charge here. So let me get this cleaned up and I'll come back. So as you can see, I got the gasket mating surface all cleaned up there on the block. I just use a razor blade and then some brake clean on a rag. Just if you're going to use a razor blade, be extra careful. You don't want to make gouges in the aluminum. And then also cleaned up the water pump as well, since I will be reusing this water pump. And the gasket I got from Amazon. This is the Molly K32493. I'll put a link in the description for this. And this is the metal style gasket. So let's go ahead and get this put on. So you got these two dowels right here, so we can go ahead and get our gasket on now. So just go ahead and get this on here correctly. We'll go through those dowels. That way it holds the gasket on here. Trying to get that one through that dowel. Get some better light here maybe. So get that over that there. So now our gasket's into place. And then I also went ahead and took a wire wheel, cleaned up the 4 long bolts for the water pump, and then also the 4 short bolts as well. Now for these long bolts, I'm going to be putting on some of this Permatex thread sealant. Just going to put a little bit on the threads here. You can get this off Amazon as well. I'll put a link in there for this stuff. So now let's go ahead and get our water pump on. I'm going to kind of stick this bottom one through for right now, because that's going to be the hardest one to get on here. So if you just kind of get that situated there, you can grab another one of these small ones here. We'll get that through up here. So I like to just get at least one of those finger tight for right now. Go ahead and stick this other small one in. Get that one started. And then this other one here. That way we know our gasket's pretty much lined up here. And then I'll go ahead and reach down here, see if we can get this bottom one started here. And I'm going to try to go through here. Maybe it's a little easier. Now, it's still kind of challenging to get down to that bottom one there. But I can feel it is started in there. So now we can go ahead and get the other 4 long bolts on. You can see I got those coated in the thread sealant. So go ahead and get all those started. So with all those started, let's go ahead and just get them snug, and then we'll torque them. So I'll start out with these small ones first to get all 4 of these just kind of tight, and then we'll do the final torque. Now I'll move on to the bigger bolts here, 1/2 inch. We'll get these snug. So then you go ahead and grab your torque wrench. We're going to torque the small bolts first. Those are going to be 11 foot-pounds. So really not much at all. So go ahead and torque those to 11. So there's 11 there. Okay, so that bottom one, you're probably not going to be able to get your torque wrench down in there just because of the motor mount being in the way. So you're going to have to guesstimate on that one. So like I said, I'll just kind of guesstimate on 11 foot-pounds for this one down here. Just because that motor mount's in the way. Okay, so now we can move on to the larger bolts. Those are going to be 15 foot-pounds. So go ahead and torque those to 15. Okay, so with all those bolts torqued, these small ones, we need to go an extra 80 degrees. So go ahead and go an extra 80 degrees on these. And then the larger bolts, we need to go an extra 40 degrees. So go ahead and tighten those an extra 40 degrees. Just like that. So now that we got our water pump all done, let's go ahead and get our power steering pump back into place. So go ahead and grab that. Get your 13 millimeter through the pulley. Let's try to get this top bolt started where it needs to be. Kind of got to go off a feel for this. Okay, and then we'll try and do the bottom one here. Just get those started first. Okay, so I got both of those started. So now we can go ahead and get those snug. And that was just taking too long. Let's get my ratchet here. So I got those tight. Let me just get my socket wrench. Let's just make sure those are nice and tight. So now we'll get our water pulley back into place. And if you notice on this pulley, you got these little dowels on here. So you need to make sure you line those up with the dowels that are on here on your water pump. So you can see it kind of just sets on there, and then it'll fall into those little grooves there on the dowels. Get these started. Go ahead and get those snug with your 8 millimeter. Now before I get the belt back into place, I am replacing this radiator hose, so let me go ahead and get that undone here first. Try to get our belt out of the way here. So the only way to get this belt out of here is to remove this spacer down here. It's It's kind of down there by the motor mount. So just get it out of the way. So this hose clamp for the lower radiator hose is kind of in a awkward spot here. I'm going to try a pair of needle nose vice grips. Let's see if I can get on there with these. Okay, there we go. So I'm latched on there. Now let's see if I can pull this hose off. There we go. And then I'll go ahead and get this hose out of here. So let's take a look at our new lower radiator hose. So this is the Dayco 72245. Got this off Amazon. I'll leave a link in the description for it. And I will be reusing this spring clamp here because I do like these, even though they're a pain. They do work good. So I'll leave that one up here. And then I'm not going to reuse this style clamp here. I found a worm clamp just laying around, so I'm going to stick that one for the bottom portion of the radiator. So let's get our new lower radiator hose down in here. Still got my vice grips on this clamp here. Just gonna get that where it needs to be here. I'll get that slid on. And I probably should have took this sticker off. Go ahead and get that slid on there. Get that where it needs to be. Get your clamp back up here. Trying to rotate this around. I'll go ahead and release this, and then I'll readjust it to where it needs to be. So I'll move this more towards the motor here. And let me just tighten these a little bit here. There we go. So I'll leave it about right there. Okay, so now our lower radiator hose is on. So now let's go ahead and get our serpentine belt back into place. So I drew up this little diagram here. So you got your AC compressor, crankshaft pulley, your water pump, belt tensioner, power steering, and then your alternator. So that's kind of how it's routed here. Goes around the back side of the water pump, the back side of the belt, and then the tensioner as well. And of course the smooth pulleys here, your tensioner, and then your water pump. That's going to be the back side of the belt that hits those. And then, of course, the groove going into all the other pulleys. So, like I said, the only way to change out this belt is to take off this spacer down here. I might do a video on this later on, just changing this out. But for right now, let's go ahead and get this back into place. So I need to go back around the crankshaft down here. So this crankshaft pulley So get back around the crankshaft pulley, and then also your AC compressor here. And then you can pull this through. So just make sure you're in the grooves of the crankshaft pulley and then also your AC compressor. So then, like I said, the back side of the belt's going to go up against the water pump, belt tensioner, and then it's going to come down to the power steering pump pulley. So get it around that. And you may have to just slide this off the belt tensioner for right now. So get it fed up that way. Of course, now it doesn't want to stay on there. Back around the power steering, over the alternator here. So it should be something kind of like that. So let me grab our 15 millimeter so we can relieve the tension on the belt tensioner. So grab your 15 millimeter, and sorry guys, I have that just a little wrong here. So just pull up right here. So we need to get under the belt tensioner. So then go up with that. And then you can go ahead and slide that over your belt tensioner pulley. And then you can let go. Just make sure you're centered. You can see I'm kind of out a little bit. So let me just pull on this a little more. We'll slide that in. Same with right here. Let go of that. And then just double check. Like I said, make sure you're in all the groove pulleys. Same with on the bottom one there, your crankshaft, AC compressor, centered on the water pump pulley, and then right here in your alternator. So that looks good. Okay, so before we go ahead and get our new radiator installed, let's go ahead and get these transmission lines down below swapped out. So go ahead and crawl underneath the vehicle here, and let's see if we can get these transmission lines out of these plastic brackets here. So I think what you want to do is grab a flathead screwdriver here, and there's this little tab up top, because I think this kind of swings outward, this piece right here. So try and pry on that. Just be careful since this plastic's probably real brittle. Try not to break it. So then we should be able to pry out on this. Let me check from the other side here. There we go. Yeah, undo the top portion of that, and then you can swing this downward. And it looks like this AC line might be in the way, but that might be enough. So let's do the other one now. So same thing on this one here. Get up under it, try not to break it. And then you got to go to the other side. There we go. So you can see that just kind of opens up like that. And then we should be able to pop these out once we get the bolts undone here. Then go ahead and follow along the transmission lines until you come to this bolt right here. It's going to be a 10 millimeter. Let's go ahead and remove that. There we go. So you remove that bracket. It does have this little thing right in there that goes into that groove. So get that removed. Okay, so to make this a little bit easier, because the transmission lines go down and then they go up into here, and it's kind of hard to get under there. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and jack this up, we'll get it on a couple jack stands, and then we can remove the transmission lines there. So really we only need to jack up the driver's side, so I'm just going to jack up here under the pinch weld. We'll get a jack stand under there for extra support as well. Go ahead and grab a jack stand. Just run underneath the pinch weld there. Just slowly lower this onto the jack stand. It's about right there like that. I'll leave my jack tightened, that way we got a double support here. So now that gives us a little extra room here. So here's one of the transmission lines going in, and then if you take a look here, I can get my camera to go up that far. You can see the other one's going to be right there. So grab a 5/8 and you'll want to grab a 3/4. So the 3/4, we want to go around this portion right here just to kind of hold that while we break this one free with your 5/8. So get your 5/8 on there. Go ahead and squeeze together on these and it should break free. There we go. And also make sure you have a pan underneath for the transmission fluid. And I should have, I'm gonna do that now. Wipe some of this dirt and debris off of here because you don't want any of that getting in there. So just make sure, clean some of this here. And I can already see transmission fluid starting to come out of there. So let me get my drip pan under here, move my camera. Okay, so go ahead and loosen that up the rest of the way here. So just catch all that transmission fluid that's going to leak out of there. So there's that one. So now let's just see if we can kind of get this line free. See which one it is that's in here. So it looks like it's going to be the one that goes on the top, so you can disconnect that out of that plastic portion there. And it looks like it's going to be the top one on that side as well. So disconnect it out of that one. And then you can just kind of bring this downward. Sure if it's going to be easier to get this from up top maybe. So now let's see if we can get this other one undone here with your 3/4 and 5/8, and you might be able to hold this 3/4 there. Grab your 5/8 from here. Just the frame kind of gets in the way here. Getting that one broken free. There we go. Okay. See if we can loosen that the rest of the way with our fingers here. There we go. Okay, so now both of our lines are undone from the transmission here. So now we'll see if we can get these lines kind of fed through here. You can undo them from the clips here. Same with this one here. go. Bring these up. Just kind of lock that clip out of the way. Then we can bring these downward. And try and fish these out of here. That's the hardest part, is getting them around this portion here. And there we go. Got our old transmission lines out there. So now let's take a look at our old and then our new transmission lines here. So the old ones, like I said, are leaking pretty good right around these fittings here, these compressed fittings. And then this rubber starts to deteriorate over time. So eventually they'll need to be changed out. So I got both of these lines off of Amazon. I'll put links in the description for them. But they are the Sunsong 5801172. It's going to be this line here. This is going to be the one that goes to the top portion of the radiator. So there's what that line looks like. And then the bottom portion of the radiator cooling line is going to be the Sunsong 5801173. And that's what this one looks like. So let's go ahead and get these in the vehicle. So we'll start out by getting these fed through this portion here. Get those kind of fed through there. And then get these fed up and through here. So the bottom radiator line is going to go in the bottom one of these clips here. So make sure you get those correctly in here. Bring this over. And you may need to try and get it something like that. And then go ahead and do your other one here. So these lines are kind of a pain to get up into these clips here, just because of the way they're shaped. But the one that goes to the bottom portion of the radiator, that one needs to go in the bottom clip. These plastic clips here, so make sure you get these routed in there correctly. And I'm going to go up top, see if that's any easier. So something kind of like that. We'll get them snapped in here at the end. So then go ahead and get your other line here. Again, make sure that's clean. Try and get this one in here. Don't want any of that dirt and debris in there. So go ahead and get that pushed in there. Again, make sure you get this one started by hand here. So you don't want to cross thread these. Sometimes you need to wiggle these lines just to get them in there to fit correctly. So if you kind of wiggle as you're screwing these in, it might help. I'm pretty sure it started in there. Because it doesn't take much to get these all the way tightened, because there's not many threads that go in there. But I just want to double check, make sure, because that one kind of felt weird threading in there. But I think we're good. So yeah. Screw this in. ¾ and your 17mm. ¾ to hold that, and tighten this up with your 17. Get that nice and snug. Okay, give it a good wipe. You just want to make sure that this isn't leaking. Another thing you can do is just grab some brake cleaner here, spray around those lines, and that way you can double check, just make sure you don't got any transmission fluid coming out of there. So I think we're good. So then go ahead and get your lines snapped into the bracket down here, this plastic thing. Try and get that snapped in there. Go. Same with your other one here. Then you can go ahead and latch those. So now we can go ahead and get this little bracket back into place. So go ahead and stick that in, and you can see these lines are off just a little bit, so it may not fit as well as the factory ones did. But go ahead and see if you can get this started. You may have to just kind of bend this line a little bit to get it to fit in here. So kind of like that. Take your 10mm. I'm going to try and hold this line as I tighten this here. And don't have enough arm room in here. Okay, so just like that. So now let's take a look at the old radiator, then the new one. So this old one, it was starting to develop a leak along here, but on the back side, right where the plastic meets the aluminum here and they pinch it together. It's a common issue on all these radiators where they pinch the plastic to the aluminum. It just starts to leak over time. And so the radiator I bought is the OSC part number 1684. Also got this off Amazon. I'll put a link in the description for it. And when you go to order the radiator for this car, it's going to ask you if you have a low coolant indicator light inside the car. The way you can tell is you'll have a sensor over here if you do have the low coolant indicator light inside the car. But as you can see, this one does not. But if you take a look at the new radiator, so this is the part number for the one without the low coolant indicator light. But you can see they still have a spot for it. All they do is they just put a little cap on here with a clip. So make sure you order the correct radiator when you go to do this. But as you can see, it's pretty much identical to the old radiator, besides the low coolant indicator section there. And then before you stick it in, just go ahead and make sure that the drain petcock is tight there, so we don't have to mess with that when we go to start filling. So let's go ahead and get our new radiator in. And if you notice that rubber plug down there, that's where the radiator kind of sits into. And you'll have the same thing over there on that side as well. Grab your new radiator. Let's go ahead and get this in. Just watch your transmission lines and all that. Also your fins here. Don't want to bend any of your fins up. So you may have to pull out on these. And then also your coolant hose there. Get that set into those rubber little plug things there. Yeah, I think I'm getting caught on my transmission cooling line here. There we go. Drop that down into place. So what I noticed already was these lines were way too tight to get them into the new radiator. So I ended up going down below there, unstrapping those from those plastic holders down there. And then I also undid the little hold down that was right here as well with the 10mm bolt. So now these are kind of loose, so it's going to be a lot easier to get these into here to get them tightened first, and then I'll go ahead and snap them back into those lines down there. Before I get the transmission lines on, let's go ahead and get our lower radiator hose back on here. Let's go ahead and get that on the radiator. Let's get that hose on. Let's go ahead and tighten up our clamp here. I know it's probably hard for you guys to see. I just can't really get a good camera angle in here. So I got a long 8mm extension to reach this new hose clamp here. And I think I need to loosen it a little more. There we go. So go ahead and get that in place. And we'll go ahead and tighten that up. So get that hose clamp snug. So go ahead and get your bottom transmission cooling line into the new radiator here. Get that threaded in there. Again, try not to cross thread that. Go ahead and get it started here. Okay, so then grab your 17mm. Let's go ahead and get that tight here. If I can get on it. There we go. Get that nice and snug. And same thing with your top one here. Get that set in there. And you may have to just kind of lift up on this line here. Move it around a little bit to get that one to line up. Started, and go ahead and tighten that one up. Okay. So now I'll go ahead and get these lines back into those plastic connectors down there. And then also that 10 millimeter bolt with the bracket. I'll get that put back on the transmission for the lines as well. So now let's go ahead and get our top radiator support in here. And then we can get our cooling fans on as well. Go ahead and drop that on here. Get your radiator lined up, the foam right here. Drop that down. Grab your 10 millimeter bolts. Let's go ahead and get all 4 of those in, and then we can do the fans. So then go ahead and get your cooling fans bolted back up with your 10 millimeter as well. Then go ahead and attach your hose here to the little nipple on the side, and then just squeeze that. That'll lock it in place. So now we can go ahead and get our thermostat in, but let's go ahead and take a look at it first. So our old one here, you can see, was a 195 degree Fahrenheit one, and then here's the thermostat housing. You can see it's pretty nasty and corroded. So I went ahead and picked this up. This is the Motorrad 5167 KTUS. Got this off Amazon. I'll put a link in the description for it. But you can see this one actually comes with a new thermostat housing here, and then also a new thermostat. But it also comes with this paper gasket as well, whereas the old one did not have that on here. So I think I'll just go ahead and stick that on there and use it since it did come with it. And this one's actually 192 degree Fahrenheit, so a few degrees more than this one, but that's totally fine. And then does have a little air valve up here, and then you want to make sure your gasket, this O-ring's on the thermostat. So just make sure that's in there. There's a little indentation, and then it just kind of sits in there just like that. So I went ahead and just cleaned up the thermostat area here. Just wiped this down with some brake clean on a rag. Got that nice and clean. So now we can go ahead and drop our thermostat in here. Since this new one does have the air valve, you usually want to put that at the highest point. So I'm going to put it about right there. So go ahead and set that in there. And then as far as this gasket here, like I said, I'm going to use it since they did supply it. And it does have it's almost like a sticker on here, it looks like. So let me see, yeah. So if I peel this off, let's see if we can maybe stick it on here. Like I said, the old one didn't have this, and I've done a newer 3.8 liter and I never had to use this, but since they supplied it, let's just go ahead and use it. So just go ahead and line that up with your bolt holes there. We'll stick that on there. Grab your housing along with your 10 millimeter bolts here. Go ahead and get those started. So go ahead and get those snug, and then we'll torque them as well. So grab your torque wrench, and you're going to torque those to 15 foot-pounds. So now we'll go ahead and get our upper radiator hose. Like I said before, I'm going to be replacing this. So I got this one off Amazon as well. It's the Dayco 71779. You can see how it compares to the old one. So let me get these hose clamps transferred over, and then we'll get that on. So go ahead and get that hose on. I'll get it on the radiator side here first. It looks like I need to go a little tighter on my vice grips for this hose clamp to open up some. you go. So get that slid on along with your clamp. Make sure that seat's on there good. We'll go about right there. Go ahead and get this one tight here. Let me say about right there. All right, so now we got our upper radiator hose on. Now let's get our air filter housing put back into place. So remember, this part here is gonna fit down into this almost like a rubber grommet, and then just watch your air intake hose here go into your throttle body. Drop this down in there. Get your hose on here. Make sure that's all the way on there. Grab your 1/4 inch. Go ahead and tighten up that hose clamp. Grab your 2 other 1/4 inch bolts here, and then they do have this little spacer on them, so make sure you don't lose those. Go ahead and get those on and tighten that down. And then don't forget to plug in this vacuum line here. This did break when I was pulling it off, but I do have some just some old vacuum line, this rubber hose, which will actually fit into here perfectly. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some of this and go ahead and fix these spots here. Same with this part where it cracked right there, and then I'll get that back on here and then back onto the throttle body. So you can see, just went ahead and patched up those little areas there, so we should be good. Got that all plugged back in. So now let's go ahead and jack this up. We'll get our jack stand out of there. We'll go ahead and lower it because I want to get an accurate reading on the transmission, and then also go ahead and fill the coolant. I'm going to leave this skid plate off for now just because I want to get everything filled up and then inspect the transmission lines, the radiator hoses, and then also the radiator, just to make sure nothing's leaking before we put the skid plate on. So now we should be ready to go ahead and start filling. So this car is going to call for the orange GM Dexcool coolant. Now I have this stuff left over from a previous project. So this is already mixed 50-50 with distilled water. You can see that does say concentrate on there, but like I said, I already mixed this stuff a while back. Same with that one. This is going to be a full gallon, so 4 quarts. And then I believe I have about maybe 2 quarts left in that one, so almost half a gallon. And if you take a look at the coolant we drained out, if I zoom in here, you can see that's in quarts. So you got 20, 15, 10. If I just tilt this a little bit, you can see there is the 5 quart mark. So it looks like we drained out about maybe 6 quarts or so. But some did spill on the floor, so I wiped that up. And then of course there's quite a bit left over in the old radiator. So I'm hoping I have enough. If not, I'm gonna have to go get some more coolant, but let's go ahead and we'll start filling. So before we go ahead and start filling here, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the bleeder valve there to let the air out as we start filling. If you guys have the old style one, I believe it's a 7 or 6 millimeter. On this new one, it's gonna be a 5 millimeter Allen. So I'm just gonna pull this all the way out. And what we're gonna be looking for is when we start filling, we're going to watch for coolant to start flowing out of there and no more air. So what I'm going to do, get a bunch of old rags here. I'm going to stuff these in here because that's going to start pouring out with coolant so it doesn't make a huge mess. So go ahead and grab yourself a funnel, stick that in the radiator, and let's go ahead and start filling here. So again, I'm going to keep an eye on that. I got my plug ready to stick back in once that starts flowing out with coolant. And we'll go ahead and get that snug. So as you're filling, like I said, just kind of watch that plug there. And when that starts flowing out, go ahead and stick your bleeder screw back in. Okay, so there's 1 gallon, 4 quarts. I have a feeling I'm gonna have to go get some more here. So yeah, that's about, I'd say 5 to 6 quarts right there. And you can see it still hasn't come out of the bleeder valve there. So I'm gonna have to run to Walmart. I'll go grab some more coolant real quick and come back. So I just got back from Walmart, picked up a gallon of distilled water, and then also a gallon of the Prestone Dex Cool concentrate. So what I'll do is I'll use one of these empty ones here. I'll mix half of this into there, half of that into there, and then that'll give us another 8 quarts or 2 gallons of coolant. So let me do that really quick and we'll go ahead and continue filling. Okay, so I'll continue filling here. Again, watching out for the bleeder valve there, coolant start to flow out of there. Okay, so it doesn't look like anything's coming out of there yet, but I can see it pretty close to flowing out of there. Let me just squeeze this a little bit here. Trying to add some more here. There it goes. So you can kind of see it flowing out of there. So I'll just let a little more flow out. Go ahead and replace your plug. And tighten that up. Get that nice and snug. Go ahead and get your paper towel out of here. Wipe up any excess there. So now I'll just go ahead and continue filling here, but we're gonna be pretty close. Looks like I can add maybe a little bit more here. So continue to fill until you pretty much can't fill anymore. So you can kind of see it there. Just gonna take my funnel out here so I can top it off. So let me just go ahead and add a little more here. And then if you want to, you can just squeeze your lower radiator hose here. Just try not to squeeze it too hard and make a mess. I'm just trying to get any other air bubbles out of here. Same with your upper hose here. As you can see, there's still a little bit of air coming out of there. So just squeeze a little more and you can see that level drops some. So I think we got most of it out of there. Let's go ahead and top this off. So before I go ahead and put the cap on, I want to start it, and then we'll see if that level drops any, and if it does, we'll go ahead and add a little more. But before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at the transmission here. I'll show you how much fluid came out, and we'll just add a little bit to that, even though we can't really check it since the vehicle's not hot, but I just want to top it off with kind of how much came out when we pulled those lines and that off. So now let's see about how much transmission fluid came out. So this is the pan I was using to collect all the transmission fluid. So you can see quite a bit actually did come out just from pulling those lines. So I do have this empty oil container here. What I'm going to do is go ahead and pour the contents of this into here so we can kind of see how much actually came out. And we can kind of use that as a reference just to top off the transmission fluid. So I'm going to go ahead and add this in here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and see. So if I take my camera here, let me move this down here so you guys can see. So it looks like, so this side's going to be quarts. This side's going to be liters. So it looks like we're almost a quart there. So I'm thinking maybe 3/4 a quart. We'll go ahead and add that to the transmission, and then we can go ahead and start it, get it nice and warm, and then we can recheck our level and add any more if we need to. So go ahead and locate your transmission dipstick right here, the red one. Go ahead and pull that out, and we'll give it a wipe. And I just want to show you. So this calls for, I believe, Dexron 3. So yeah, if you take a look here on the dipstick, you can see right there, Dexron 3 is what this calls for. And I had some transmission fluid left over from another project. And this is more of a universal transmission fluid, but you can see it's for GM. This is the Castrol Transmax. I got this off Amazon a while back. But if you flip it over here on the back, you can see that it meets the specs for Dexron 3 right there. So this transmission fluid will work. So like I said, it was about a quart, a whole quart is what came out, but I'm just gonna add maybe 3/4 of a quart because I don't want to overfill the transmission either. But you got to take into account too, I put a new radiator in, so there's a little transmission fluid that was left over in the old the old radiator. So we'll start out with 3/4 of a quart, and then we'll take it on a test drive, get it nice and warm, and we can recheck later and add any if we need to. And so this does have a sight glass on the side, so go about 3/4 of a quart here. So I'm going to say right about there. So go ahead and pull my funnel here. Replace the dipstick. And then I almost forgot to, let's go ahead and top off the overflow reservoir there. You can see you got a full cold line and then a full hot line. So let's just go up to the full cold line there. So there's a full cold line. I'll go ahead and replace this cap. So now we'll go ahead and start it. I'll leave this cap off for now. We'll see if that level drops really quick and add some if we need to. So go ahead and start it here. And then we also want to turn our heater on high and all the way warm. So that way it starts flowing through the heater core. So you can see our level did drop, so let's go ahead and top that off. So it really didn't take too much. Just gonna squeeze the upper radiator hose. Make sure there's no more air bubbles. So I think we're good. So now I'll just go ahead and check for any leaks around your thermostat, your hoses, also your transmission lines, and your lower radiator hose. See, that all looks good. Come down below here. Just go ahead and inspect your, try to get you guys light down here, but inspect your transmission lines, and then also your hoses under here, and that all looks dry. So you can see that starting to rise now, so let's go ahead and get our radiator cap on. So go ahead and replace that. So now I'll go ahead and let this get up to temp here. We'll let that thermostat open up, see if we need to add any more coolant. I may end up taking it on a drive as well, get that transmission nice and hot, and then we can come back and see if we need to add any transmission fluid. All right guys, so I took it on probably a 20-minute drive or so. You can see we're at normal operating temperature. And then we definitely have hot air coming out of the vents. So go ahead and turn that off. So I'm gonna leave it running here. And let's go ahead and check that transmission fluid. So go ahead and pull out your dipstick here and give it a good wipe. Make sure that's nice and clean so we get an accurate reading here. Stick that back down in there. Pull it out. And go ahead and take a look here. So if you notice, try to zoom in here. So we are about right just above the there it goes, just above the bottom dot there, so about right there. So we probably need to add a little more. I'll probably get it up to about maybe halfway or 3/4 into the crosshatch marks there, and call that good. So I'll go ahead and add some more transmission fluid here. So I went ahead and added a little more transmission fluid. Let's go ahead and check our level one more time. So now if you take a look here, it'll zoom in. You can see we're about 3/4 to halfway up the crosshatch marks there. So I'm gonna call that good. I don't wanna go any more just in case this gets a little warmer. It has room to grow if it needs to. So what you wanna do next is just go ahead and let this cool overnight. That coolant level's most likely gonna drop a little bit, and then just top it off if you need to. And then just inspect everything else. Your water pump, make sure that's not leaking, along with your transmission lines, hoses, all that again. And then your thermostat housing too. You see that all looks dry. Same with your transmission lines down there, the rubber hoses there. That all looks good. Come down below here. And then just make sure you don't got any drips. See if I can zoom out here. You can see that all looks good. That's just some grease laying on the ground there. It looks like everything is dry and looks good. So now you can go ahead and get your skid plate back on. I'm not gonna do that right now. I'm gonna wait till tomorrow because I'm gonna go ahead and pressure wash this, get this all cleaned up, because those transmission lines that were leaking just made a huge mess on this. And then don't forget to put your engine cover back on here. So go ahead and take off your filler neck for your oil. This is gonna go up under that tab there. Get that into position. Go ahead and put your filler neck back on and screw your oil cap on. All right, so that's gonna wrap up the video. Again, this was a 1999 Buick Lesabre with the 3.8 liter. Went ahead and drained the cooling system, replaced the radiator, upper and lower radiator hoses, the water pump gasket, thermostat, and then also the 2 transmission cooling lines coming from the radiator to the transmission. So quite a bit of work on this car, but well worth it. This car has kind of low miles on it for the year, and still runs great. So hoping this video helps you out, and if it does, why don't you consider subscribing to my channel, checking out my other videos, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.